All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for your patience and welcome to the meeting of the Lower Providence Township Board of Supervisors for Thursday, May
Can you guys hear
7th,
me?
2020.
I
Would you
cannot
all
hear
please
anybody.
rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic
and to the republic which it stands,
one nation,
one
under
nation,
God,
under
indivisible,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
liberty and justice for all.
and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And again, everyone, thank you for your patience. We'll begin with roll call this evening. I am present. Supervisor Ekman.
I am here.
Thank you. Supervisor Colas.
I'm here.
Thank you. Supervisor McFarland.
I'm here.
And Supervisor Knights. He's not with us at the moment.
No, I'm trying.
Can you guys hear me?
Now I can hear you.
Okay, so Supervisor Knights is present. All supervisors are present. First item on the agenda this evening is the consent agenda consisting of the minutes of our last Board of Supervisors meeting on April 16th, as well as an escrow release for iRoy Sports and Fitness in the amount of $107,398. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion.
Supervisor
second.
Knights made the motion. Is there a second? Supervisor McFarland
I'll
seconded.
second.
Thank you. Any? Yes, Supervisor McFarland seconded. Thank you. Are there any questions or items of discussion from the board? Are there any questions from the audience or comments? Bill, any questions or comments on the consent agenda?
I do not see any. No hands are raised.
Okay. Thank you. Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2, new business. Our first item is 2A, authorization to advertise an ordinance establishing the Office of Fire Marshal, Emergency Management Coordinator, and Solicitor John Rice has information about that. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What's in front of the board is authorization to advertise an ordinance which would establish the Fire Marshal Emergency Management Coordinator Office. I guess it came to the staff's attention that there was no formal ordinance establishing this. There are a couple other provisions, sort of general in the code, and there is a long list of job duties that have been published, but they were never incorporated into an ordinance. So basically, this does that. It establishes this office and also spells out what the fire marshal duties are, in addition to things such as emergency expenditures and media information release. So that's the really all of Article 1, those sections. That would be a new section in the code. The other two parts of this ordinance, Articles 2 and 3. Article 2 repeals essentially a one-paragraph provision which predates a lot of the state law establishing the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Act, and it essentially permits the chairman of the board to declare an emergency, which is not the law. I mean, you have an emergency management coordinator, and the chair can do that, but it's got to be done in conjunction with the emergency management coordinator. So, this ordinance would repeal that. It's unnecessary. And then Article 3, you have a Chapter 40 in your code, which is very interesting. Chief would, I'm sure, like this, but it permits a special volunteer police force in Lower Providence Township. in 1964. I have no idea what this was about, why it was done in 64. There's no authorization for something like this in the second-class township code, but it looks like it was done almost like a volunteer fire department. Someone had an idea that, well, let's have a volunteer police force. So this would wipe this out of the code also and, eliminate that. I think we're beyond the days of volunteer police officers. So that's it. Tonight is just to authorize it to be advertised. It'll come back at at the next available meeting for adoption.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there a motion to advertise the ordinance establishing the office of Fire Marshal and Emergency Management Coordinator?
I'll make a motion to advertise the Office of Emergency Management Coordinator.
Thank you. We have a motion by Supervisor Colas. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion by Supervisor, or a second rather, by Supervisor Knights. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, seeing none. Are there any questions or comments from the public? Bill, are you seeing any questions?
I'm not seeing any hands raised. So, of the 10 attendees.
Thank you very much. So seeing the vote. All right, thank you. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries. Item 2B is the Avenue Eagleville Road intersection project and an engineering addendum with us this evening, Stephanie and Casey Moore from McMahon and Associates to explain that in some greater. Stephanie and Casey.
Thank you, Jason. You guys can hear me. I guess wait a little. Thanks for having us tonight. What I wanted to present to the board, and I believe it was submitted through the township manager in your packets tonight, is an addendum to a project that we've been working on diligently over the past several years for the intersection of Park, Eagleville, and Crawford. The item has to do with an addendum, which is referred to as addendum number 2. We did a proposal for the township last dated May 1st. It's a 73-page document for essentially an addendum for the final design of the project. This project started some years ago in the year of 2016. We started the project and scoped it with PennDOT, and it was without a lot of engineering detail at that time. So over the years, and as we've gotten into the project and into preliminary engineering, PennDOT has identified through the process as we've gone through and into final design that additional services will be needed from McMahon and 3 of our sub-consultants in order to complete the project and for it to be ready for construction. The items that are specifically in this proposal include the final geotechnical and structure design for additional retaining wall along the Crawford Road culvert, off-site intersection evaluations that we need to do in order to design temporary signal plans for the maintenance protection of traffic during a complex construction staging and detour plan for the staged construction of the intersection. Some utility coordination that we have to do with a lot of utilities, but specifically with Audubon Water and Verizon. An H&H study, which is a hydrologic and hydraulic report that we need to update for the access and temporary staging for MPDES permits. And also some additional right-of-way services. When the project was initially thought, there may be it was in the range of around 6 properties we thought that may be affected. But during the whole preliminary design project and process, and the elevation of the road and the location of the roadways, there are up to 18 parcels at this point that may be touched in the vicinity of the intersection. So all of those services combined are in this proposal. So at this point this evening, what we'd like to do is answer any questions that the board may have on the contents of the proposal, and get your authorization in order to continue to move this forward, to utilize the grant money that the township has received from PennDOT as well as DCED over the past several years, and to progress this thing to final completion so that we can obtain the final construction money and get this thing constructed for the board and the residents of the township.
Thank you, Casey. Does any on the board have any questions for Casey or for Stephanie?
I don't really have a question. I just, go ahead, Peter. If you have a question, go ahead first.
It's not really a question. It might be the same thing, Colleen, but I just thought since we're having a discussion on this project in the public, and we haven't had one for some time, if perhaps Casey or Stephanie could just in a very summary way kind of paint out the timeline of, we started in 2016, we're going to go through final design followed by construction. And just in terms of scope, what do we think we're looking at the moment going forward, time-wise?
Yeah, well, I can do this for you, but Stephanie is our lead project manager on this, so I'm going to let her do the honors since she's on the call with me.
Sure, no problem. So this project did start back in 2016 once everything got underway with preliminary engineering. So that started the process, and we've gone through preliminary engineering and received that approval actually just this past February. So it has to go through PennDOT, obviously. They do a number of different reviews as well as environmental clearance. All of which that has been obtained, as well as what's called our design field view approval. So then once we get that approval, we then move into our final design phase, which is where we are right now. And it basically takes those preliminary engineering and fine tunes it and prepares the plan specifications and estimate package, which is what is used to go out to bid for construction. Also in final design, you complete the utility clearance requirement, which deals with utility companies and utility relocations and getting their designs completed. You also deal with the right-of-way clearance, which is when the right-of-way plans are prepared, and ultimately any temporary construction easements or permanent easements or right-of-way are acquired. And then ultimately you get into your PS&E package, which we are expecting to have complete pretty much in about a year, maybe a little bit less from now. So hopefully between March to May next year, 2021, that process will be completed. And essentially that's all the approvals that need to go through PennDOT, whether it's a structural approval. Obviously we have 2 structures on this project, actually 3 with a retaining wall. The geotechnical reviews and approvals, and then obviously the final plans themselves. So as I said, we started in 2016. It took some time to get through preliminary engineering for various reasons, but now we're progressing full steam ahead in with final design. Critical tasks include our stormwater management and our NPDES application. And so as we're progressing, we would expect, like I said, we would expect our final plans in the end of March to early May 2021. And then depending on the funding for construction and any of the outstanding grant applications that we have, that will dictate when the project would actually move into construction. But the goal is to have everything designed and ready to go in just about a year from now. Let me see if there's any other schedule items that I can touch on. But essentially, I think essentially that's the that's the schedule. The changes, the plan itself remains the same as what we've presented at a couple of the prior open houses to the public with the township. So the overall design of the plan and the intersection improvements remain consistent with what was presented at those open houses.
Thank you, Steph.
Casey, feel free to
Thank
add.
you, Stephanie.
If I might just ask then, if the final design is completed as anticipated about a year from now, and putting the additional funding requirements into a different category, which are important, but that would mean that we would go out to bid, but construction in this area would not begin before 2022 at the earliest. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Okay, I'm
Yes,
just trying to
that
give
would
the
be,
public some idea
I would
of.
agree that. Sure, I would definitely say by the time you get through the advertisement and the letting process, and then ultimately weather, I would anticipate no earlier than a spring 2022 start date. And we anticipate this project will take what we call 2 construction seasons to complete. So we have to account for obviously weather calendar days that would be restricted due to weather. And when you put that all into a schedule, we're looking at a solid 2 construction seasons. So that would put us through 2022 and 2023. That would be, that would be the anticipated schedule.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for that. I just wanted the public to have assuming that things go as we would like them to go, that would be the timelines we'd be thinking about. And then just to kind of give the public a heads up as to when they might actually see something happening out there.
Right.
So thanks for that.
Casey and
I think
Stephanie,
Colleen had a question too.
Yes, Gary?
yeah, so you guys had previously gone through a pretty extensive review with us, showing us financial projections, when the money was going to be spent for the engineering as well as for the construction. And I'm looking here, we have about 50 pages of documentation in front of us in our packets. And in that, it outlines about 18 tasks related to the engineering. Is it fair to say that this scope addendum will let us complete all 18 of those tasks that are detailed out?
Yes, that's the intention of the addendum, Gary. You are correct.
Okay, thank you.
I was just going to mention that after Stephanie went through the timeline, if residents are interested in seeing, more detailed information, it is available on the township's website under current projects. You can, Denise updates that regularly, so you can always go there to keep up to date.
Colleen, do we put these type of documents out there on the website? Or is that not something that's appropriate to put out?
I don't think they're up there now. I mean, we would have to approve them before they would be up, but I mean, we could talk to Don. I don't see why they can't go up. It's part of the whole thing.
Okay. Thanks.
I would just like to clarify on the task question. The document does list up to task 19, and that's simply because there's 19 tasks in final design. This document is only requesting a supplement to a certain number of tasks, but not all 19. They're numbered to match the original agreement. So there's, just to clarify, it's probably closer to 1, 2, 3, maybe 6 or 7 tasks offhand.
But this will get us through all of the engineering.
Yeah,
That's
I think
correct.
that was your bottom line. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I was going to ask, kind of with Colleen, is what was out on the website? Because I thought I'd seen it. I just didn't know if the latest and greatest with the stormwater plan and everything is that. Do we have that out for people to see that live in that area? Like the change.
I think we could certainly take our PowerPoint presentation that we've prepared recently and update it to be able to put on the website. The detailed of the stormwater plan has to still go into the county conservation district for review. So I think at that point, once we work through some of their concerns and questions, certainly as we develop more of the final plans, we can put them out. But certainly we can.
I'm sorry,
ahead.
Steph, I think we're done. I would say any plans that provide the broad overview, Kara, that are easily understandable by most folks can probably be put out, but a lot of the details that Steph's talking about that have yet to receive their final approvals and stuff like that probably wouldn't be the best to put online just yet.
Okay. Yeah, I was looking for more of the visuals because being able to see kind of what you guys presented before is helpful for people who don't remember what the plan was.
You mean more the layout of the roads, Kara?
Yeah, the layout and where the water is going to be rerouted and the 3 structures that are going to be there.
Yep.
It's just nice to be able to see what's going to happen.
I think that's a really good idea because if you get it out there, it helps with change management. People start to see the plan, they can process it, they can understand it, versus suddenly seeing construction and then something comes up, they don't know what it's going to look like. So that's a good idea.
Well, respectfully, I think you're insinuating that we haven't had that out there. We've been talking about this for years, and that's been out there every time. So they wouldn't just see construction. We presented this multiple times in multiple forums, including supervisors meetings, open houses, and also posting online. So I don't want the public to have the misperception that they would just suddenly see construction, and we haven't shared that. We've certainly been sharing along the way.
Oh, Jason, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to insinuate anything at all. I was thinking more. I hadn't, like, it was only maybe 2 months ago that I saw the drawing of what it would look like. So that's what I was referring to, like the picture of what the new intersection would look like. I'm saying if we have that, I would recommend getting it out there sooner so people see that. That's all. I wasn't insinuating there's anything wrong going on.
And I've seen it in the past too. It's just people need that.
Yeah. So yeah, Jason's right that we've presented this publicly at a lot of open houses and even at probably a board meeting or two, the overview. But I think having that colored up rendering that you're referring to, Kara, we can certainly make sure that Dawn has that to add to the website.
Thank you, Casey. Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, and I think Bill's projecting that now.
Yes, that's on the website.
Is it? Great.
That's on the website. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the project engineering addendum 2 for the Park Avenue, Eagleville Road, Crawford Road intersection?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Supervisor McFarland, and the second was by
Hey, Colleen.
Supervisor Ekman. Thank you. Any additional questions or comments from the board? Okay, any questions or comments from the public? And we'll wait a moment, and Bill, if you can let us know.
We do. We have Paul Hoffgesang, if you want to speak now.
I was wondering what was built into the plan to slow the traffic down, especially coming down Park South towards the intersection.
So in terms of what we're doing for the project, the picture you see before you, the grade is going to be elevated a little bit. The intersection at the end of the day is going to be signalized. So there will be warning signs in advance of the intersection, the signal ahead sort of a thing. The grade on the hill will be reduced because the center of the intersection will be essentially like pulled up on a string, and its elevation where it is now will sit up higher, and that will help lend itself to helping the speeds and the safety and the visibility along all the approaches. So that's what's being done in this area.
So admittedly, I may have been one of the few that were in favor of a rotary. There's not going to be like rumble strips or something like that in order to be able to draw their attention given the speed of the trucks that come down Park Avenue headed south.
There's been no rumble strips approved by PennDOT at this time. So there's nothing like that to slow down traffic in and of itself. No.
So from a public, input, and also passing through that intersection pretty much every time I go in and out of my neighborhood, would appreciate if that would be incorporated in so that people don't get rear-ended by the trucks coming especially the ones headed south on Park.
We thank you for your comments, and as we move forward with the final design, we will definitely share that with the PennDOT personnel that we're coordinating with on the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, Casey, to that point, with the installation of lights, would there be additional signage letting people know well ahead of time that traffic stops there now versus being able to go through?
Yes, there will be. And we've even talked about the fact when you're coming south on Park Avenue and you're coming around a curve and slightly down the hill, there's been some discussion with PennDOT during the process as to whether one of those signs that illuminates that says red signal ahead, to watch for cars that might be queued up that don't stop there today. Those types of things are being all factored into the design process, yes.
And just in support of what the gentleman from the public said, I actually had liked the idea of a rotary there as well. I've used rotaries quite a bit driving in different parts of the world, and they're actually very efficient at slowing down traffic and keeping it moving at the same time. But I don't think from what I've heard, Casey, I don't think.
Or Stephanie.
Casey, from what I've heard you guys say, that was not possible with the physical layout. I think there's some.
we actually
looked at
a couple alternatives.
I was going to say, I think that's a good idea, but I don't think it was feasible there.
Part of the issue.
We actually looked at a couple alternatives. One was the roundabout and one was the signalized intersection. They both had pros and cons to them. And, there's certain features of the intersection that would have, that were considered for both. They both operated at good levels of service for the intersection, but there was just different constraints for each one. And ultimately, we went through the discussion, and the traditional intersection was what was preferred at the time.
Agreed.
I'd also remind everyone that was presented at a public open house and public comment was provided and resoundingly was not in favor of the roundabout at the time. Okay, are there any additional public comments, Bill?
No one else has raised their hand.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. So seeing no additional comments, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Casey, and thank you, Stephanie. We appreciate your work on this project, and we're excited to see it continue to move along. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you all very much. Thank you.
Okay, item 2C, moving on, is consideration of ordinance number 668, Lower Providence Sewer Authority borrowing guarantee. And by way of some background, the Board of Supervisors serves as the guarantor when the Lower Providence Township Sewer Authority expresses a need to borrow money. So this evening we have with us the chairman of the board of the Lower Providence Township Sewer Authority, Mr. Fred Walker, who will provide us some additional information about the anticipated borrowing. Good evening, Chairman Walker.
Good evening. Well, you took away my introduction. So I'm here tonight to request approval for a $10 million loan. We're asking for township's guarantee. The Sewer Authority is applying to borrow $10 million from the Delaware Valley Regional Finance Authority, called DelVal, for the repair and replacement of sections of the aging system. The lender requires the township to provide a loan guarantee. Tonight, I am here to request the township's approval of an ordinance providing that guarantee. The loan is self-liquidating using rates and fees of the Sewer Authority. It has no impact on the borrowing ability of the township. The authority was created in 1962. The first sections of the collection system went into operation in the 60s. The system consists of 6,768 residential customers, 267 commercial customers, 17 pump stations, and 113 miles of underground pipe. It also includes 2,962 manholes. We currently estimate the replacement cost of a system to be $195 million. The system is aging and requires investment to maintain a safe operation for the protection of the health, safety, and welfare of the public. Ongoing projects are required to protect the environment. As the sewer system ages, there is an increase of inflow and infiltration, which we call I&I. The excess water is clean water, and it enters the system, and it can cause failures and overflows, as well as excess treatment costs. I&I principally occurs during heavy rainstorms when there's a lot of groundwater. So it creates surges in the system. In the past 20 years, the authority has aggressively addressed the increase in I&I by identifying and removing illegal connections, system grouting, and spot repairs. Engineering studies have identified collection areas where there are I&I problems. The authority developed a program to address the problem areas and to set priorities. Over the last 5 years, the authority utilized $5.6 million in capital funds to replace collection system sewers and leaking laterals in the most problematic areas. We have seen a significant decrease in I&I. Our major construction project repair and replacement program is updated annually and prioritized annually. Our plan is to continue to address the most problematic areas. So we've basically depleted our capital reserve fund in the last 5 years. So we decided to look at the market to borrow money. And the current lending environment is very favorable, with loan interest rates just over 1%. It's at a historic low rate, and it's an opportunity. The authority provided financial information to the supervisors prior to the meeting for your review. The authority is able to pay interest and principal for the existing loan or for the new loan through existing revenue. No increase in the collection or transportation fee is anticipated due to the loan. Treatment charges at the Oaks Wastewater Treatment Plant are determined by the regional authority and are not controlled by Lower Providence Sewer Authority. So the treatment cost is a direct pass through to the customer. To summarize, the Sewer Authority is requesting the township to provide a loan guarantee. the board have any questions?
Thank you, Fred. I appreciate the information. I know we all do. I know you said that the borrowed money would be utilized to address the most problematic areas. And one of those areas that's come up in front of the Board of Supervisors before is mine run. And I do believe that some of these funds would be utilized to do some work in that area. Is that accurate?
Yeah, the first two projects principally address I&I problems in the trooper area, which is a contributory to mine run. Yes.
Thank you. Other questions from the supervisors?
Just, if I may, Fred, for the benefit of the public more, you borrow the 10 million, you've identified projects at that amount or in excess of that amount for which you would use the money already. I believe that's correct.
The money we already spent, we already had in reserve. The $10 million.
No, I'm talking about the $10 million that you're planning to spend, that you've already identified projects for that money that's going to be borrowed.
Yes, we maintain a project list. We update it every year to prioritize which areas we need to address first. So that list today contains $15 million worth of potential work. So we will be concentrating on the most problematic areas.
Okay, I guess my only point I was trying to make there is that there are pressing areas in need for which this money is being spent rather than borrowing the money in anticipation of other future problems. And the second thing, I'll leave it at that, but this is a 30-year note. So once you have spent this funding on the identified problems, you'll probably be 5 or 10 years out, but will there be a need to borrow additional funding before this note is retired?
Well, we look at the need every year, and we also have funds that come to us through the sale of capital EDU fees. We do not include those in our budget, but they are utilized to develop additional capital funds. So instead of overreaching on the borrowing, we wanted to be conservative, and we wanted to not cause an increase in our rates because of this borrowing.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question
Any
about,
additional questions for?
yes. In the ordinance, section 4, Fred, you, and maybe our solicitor would have explained this. So you mentioned the interest rate will be just above 1%, but I'm confused as to why the ordinance lists a maximum loan rate of 15%. Why is that even in there?
I have that information if, hello?
It's a fairly sophisticated instrument. I saw the same thing. I already asked the question, and it's there as a cap. It's to protect us and Del Val. We would never borrow money at that rate. What happens, the mechanics of it is when we go to settle the rate or settle for the money, the rate will be set at that time, and it will be a fixed amount. We're being told it's going to be around 1.2%. So yeah, I was scared when I saw 15%.
Well, if that
Jerry,
is the case, why couldn't we change that number from like 15 to 5?
You would have to go to
If I could
Del
weigh in
and
with-
negotiate with them.
Okay.
If I
I
could
don't-
provide a little information on this?
Thank you, Jerry. Go ahead.
Okay, we haven't borrowed, the township ourselves have not borrowed from Del Val Regional Finance Authority for a few years now. However, this 15% interest rate, if you pull previous documents from township borrowing, you would probably see the same rate. However, I did confirm with Lucian Calhoun just today because I anticipated this type of question. And Lucian Calhoun stated that all Del Val loans are approved as variable rate loans. And we lock in the rate, just as Mr. Walker stated. Once all authorizations are secured this evening, ideally with the board, then Mr. Walker will lock in the rate at a fixed rate. And it should be around that 1.253, right around that area, unless the basis points change between today and tomorrow. However, this type of loan with Del Val, the only kind they offer, there is always the option to change a fixed rate to a variable rate. When you're going in with an interest rate as low as it is right now, hard to anticipate that you'd ever want to change to a variable rate. However, because it is an option throughout the life of the loan to change to a variable rate, they must disclose what the maximum variable rate would be at any point in this loan. So Mr. Walker's correct. I mean, no one would ever borrow at that rate, but they do need to disclose that to us.
And Jerry, thank you for that explanation. And that variable rate conversion, that's solely at the sewer authority's discretion?
I can't answer to that level of detail on your question without looking. Maybe the solicitor would know. However, I would anticipate that the sewer authority would again confer with the township and have to go for a public vote on any type of refinance. I don't know if Mr. Walker can confirm that. I want to really speak on something that I don't have before me.
I simply meant, could Del Val change it to variable, or is it only at our request?
No,
No.
Absolutely not. They could.
Okay.
No, Gary, it would be at the sewer authority's option. And the other thing on the 15%, this is a state, DCED, these documents are going to DCED for approval. Any kind of debt gets approved, municipal debt gets approved by DCED, and they require you to put this maximum rate, worst case scenario, in these ordinances, but it'll lock in at the rate that you're being told once they close on it. Almost every one of these I've seen, and I've seen hundreds of these bonds, this maximum interest rate, no one ever borrows money at 15%, not since the late 70s probably. So you've got a really good rate, and they can't convert it unilaterally to variable. So whatever that rate is that Jerry said, I'm sure it'll be in that neighborhood. That'll be set at closing, and then that's what it'll be for the remainder of the term.
I think, just to add to that, both the school boards, districts, not just ours, others as well as municipalities, have used the variable rate point when they are paying a rate which is higher than the current market, and that allows them to then move to the lower rate by paying off the original. So they've been able to save money. I think the township has done it as well by moving that note to a lower rate, although in this case at 1.25 something, that's almost certainly never going to happen.
Right.
This is Kara, that my only question would be, you walk in tomorrow and it's now 2.5. I mean, do you have a threshold that you're like, yeah, don't want to do it? Or like, have you guys thought about that? I'm assuming it won't, but just thought I would ask.
The parameter we were using was to be conservative and not cause any increase in our rate structure. So if an adjustment was made, it would be to borrow less money. But I will add that one of the reasons this has been expedited is Del Val has a limited amount of money at this rate. So I urge you to consider this tonight. because we may not have this opportunity a month from now.
Okay, are there any other additional questions or comments from the supervisors? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve ordinance number 668, Lower Providence Township Sewer Authority borrowing guarantee?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Supervisor McFarland. Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion and move it into discussion.
Okay, thank you. We have a second by Supervisor Knights. Additional questions or comments from the supervisors?
Yeah, first, I want to thank Fred for his hard work and the hard work of the Sewer Authority. Operationally, I think, this is a good set of projects. The interest rates are good. We need to go get them. My main concern is accounting support. I had requested, this is a $10 million loan guarantee, and I'd requested information on projected income statement, projected balance sheet. And, I was told that the Sewer Authority didn't have the accounting resources to generate those sorts of things, and I get it, I understand it. But this is a $10 million loan guarantee, and I'm going to vote no, not because I don't want us to get the money and not because I don't think we should do the projects, but I want to vote no to put it out there that I think we need to have better accounting support so that if we do go after a loan like this, we can provide the financial projections that are needed, that I would need to truly vote in favor of a $10 million loan guarantee. So that's what I would like to put out there.
Can I just ask to understand this better, that you're talking about a municipal sewer authority that has revenues in the range of $3.5 million a year, and you're concerned that they don't run 10-year forward finance projections, which I don't know that any company of that size, private or public, would ever do that, number one. Number two, your concern in voting no with regard to the accounting support does not seem to be supported by the Delaware Valley Authority, who are loaning this money, and we're just providing a guarantee. So their examination of the financials seemed to satisfy them. I'm wondering why that's not sufficient for you.
First, thank you for raising those points, Supervisor McFarland. When I go forward with a loan over a period of time or a request for capital, I always need to provide the financials over the life of the loan, the sources of repayment, what it would look like with and without the change in finances. So it's not unusual at all, Peter, for a 30-year loan to show, what that's going to do.
I think it's very unusual for a $3 million business to do that, having run those in the past myself. But yeah, if that's your point, I won't argue it, but I don't see a financial model of this size doing anything other than just taking their current revenues and projecting them forward. I don't know how that would have any real value to anyone viewing this note.
Well, it would certainly have value to me to have an idea if you have certain capital, are there additional cost structures that come along with it? If you're putting in a $500,000 piece of equipment, does that increase or decrease your ongoing cost? I have no idea looking at this. And those are the types of things that as a business person, I would certainly look at. Does this capital, is it just pure replacement with no impact on cost? Does this capital replacement lower costs? Mr. McFarland, these are things that any prudent business person would do to understand. And I'm not expecting the Sewer Authority to to be able to do this without, having someone there to support them. I would be willing to go in and help do this. I could put out these projections after a couple of conversations with folks. I'm sure someone, with the right accounting background could. So I want to give the sewer authority the help they need. That's all.
All right, I won't pursue that any further. I don't agree. I'll leave it at that.
I just have one more comment, if I may. Fred, I'd like to thank you and the other sewer authority members. You really have a tight budget, and you continue to keep our sewer rates very low. And unless the regional, raises rates, and so you have to, of course, pass those on to the ratepayer. But we do appreciate the work you're doing up there. It's a critical infrastructure that we need to keep flowing, and we appreciate all you're doing there.
This is Kara. I'll pipe in. I do, and I'm learning, so this is kind of new to me, how the sewer works and everything. I've talked to them briefly. I understand there's work that needs to be done, and accounting makes my head hurt. So I appreciate that Gary looked at it. I do think there's a point, and I would probably have made the point, just if we're going to guarantee $10 million, we owe it to the taxpayers to at least ask the questions, and we're all going to take different approaches to it. So, it's a thing I'm trying to grasp and figure out, but I mean, I think we need to do the work. The investment hasn't been there in a while, and I've seen what happens when we don't make the investment. So I do appreciate what they're doing, and I'm looking forward to learn more as I go.
And Fred, there were projections out for 3 years, correct?
Sorry, it took me a minute to find the button. Yeah, we projected 3 years. As you know, corporations this week currently are not giving guidance. That's for 3 months because of the situation. So we look real hard at how to go beyond 3 years. We have a very stable revenue stream, but I've done statistical analysis and variable analysis, and you go to infinity and zero when you get out a couple of years. So the possible outcomes are all over the place. So to project out past 3 years is meaningless, with due respect. So we want to try to keep things factual here.
Well, I'm going to try not to, extend this any further, but unlike many other operations, this agency has a certain income based on the fees that are collected from every residence and commercial operation in the township. So the likelihood of that being highly variable, meaning that a high percentage of these residents and commercial operations don't pay, which would be illegal, of course. And that could happen perhaps in a pandemic, but the projections that I'm seeing on a more statewide level for this kind of thing are in a couple of quarters and a single-digit percentage. So that while there might be some effect there going out 5 years, you have what can be easily predicted as a revenue stream, and a very predictable cost based on maintaining that system, cost being operational cost as well as the maintenance cost, which is represented by the $10 million investment, which is going to be used to maintain the system primarily, which is only a problem if you don't maintain it, and then the cost of future repairs becomes much higher. So while I know there's a little bit of uncertainty in the marketplace right now, and perhaps we all, the township included, might be seeing a bit of variable revenue streams over the next 6 to 12 months, perhaps. Certainly not in a projection of any length would you expect the revenues on the on the sewer authority to change significantly short of raising the rates.
Okay, are there any other comments from the supervisors? All right, seeing none. Bill, public comment. Would anyone from the public like to comment?
At this point, I don't see anybody who's raised their hand.
Okay, thank you very much. Seeing none, then I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Nay?
Hang on.
Aye.
Let's go back to the ayes. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, motion passes 4-1. Thank you. And thank you for joining us tonight, Fred. And we look forward to the improvements that will be made with the sewer system through the borrowing of this money. And we appreciate the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you, Fred.
Okay, moving through the agenda by way of announcements. I have no announcements this evening. Does anyone else from the board have any announcements?
Yeah, Chairperson Sorgini, this is Supervisor Knights. I just want to say that Representative Webster is kicking off a food distribution program. This is in conjunction with various school districts in the 150th. And that's going to be located at Via Roma Pizzeria near where the Ollie's is. And the concept of operations is that the schools are going to be reaching out to families with kids in need. And they'll get basically like a ticket to go and pick up meals on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then we're going to be staffing that with volunteers to organize the meals and hand them to the families when they drive through. So that will also, over time, if someone shows up and they need food, if there's extra meals, they'll provide them, and they'll provide guidance in terms of how you can get on the list. So just want to say thanks to Representative Webster and the school districts for organizing this program and situating it within Lower Providence.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments from supervisors?
If I may, I just would applaud that effort, and gives me a reason to also reach out and thank other food distribution efforts that are underway in the township and the surrounding townships. St. James Outreach Program comes to mind, and many people are finding themselves in a surprisingly difficult situation, as we all know. And all of these efforts collectively are, I'm very grateful to see and supportive of the efforts to make sure that families are taken care of in this difficult time of need. I'd also just mention, although it's not official, that it's worth noting that there will be a vote at the county level next week to consolidate the locations of polls in the June 2nd primary. But until that vote is taken and that's official, I don't think we would be publicizing any of those changes. I just wanted to offer a heads up to the public that there is likely going to be some changes in that regard. Thank you.
I'll add a plug that you can still vote by mail or register for vote by mail, I believe, till, and I'm the 26th, I believe. Someone will have to correct me, at votespa.com for those who want to do mail-in.
Okay, thank you very much. Any additional supervisor comments?
I just have
Any
just sort
comments
of one
from
update.
township staff?
Oh, Jason, can I have one update? Sorry. You can hear me, right?
I can hear you, Colleen.
Yes, it might have been a little lag. Yeah.
Sorry, I was talking over you. The Park and Recreation Open Space Committee, subcommittee, met Zoom meeting yesterday. The bids were received, and there were 6 bids submitted. So the committee now has the full information that each consultant submitted. We're in the process of evaluating each one separately, and we're going to get back together next week and share our sort of rating system that we've done individually, combine that, and we should have something for the Board of Supervisors to take action on at our next Board of Supervisors meeting, hopefully. All goes well.
Hey, Colleen, who all was involved in the Open Space Committee in the review?
We didn't do the review yet. We're doing that now.
Or who was involved in this process to date?
So mostly Park and Rec members and a couple of Planning Commission members. We've been doing this from the beginning. We took volunteers from the beginning. And of course, it's headed by Jane Delaney, our Park and Rec director.
Okay, thank you all. Is there any, or are there any comments and other business from staff members? Okay, seeing none, I'll open it to courtesy of the floor. If anyone from the public would like to comment or ask a question, I should have prefaced that at the beginning of the meeting to say, please begin by stating your name and address for the record if you would like to comment. And we'll pause a moment and I'll ask Bill to let me know if there are any comments.
At this point, I do not see any hands raised.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. As we've done towards the end of every meeting, we just say that our thoughts and prayers are with all of the essential staff who are working hard during these difficult times. That includes our Lower Providence first responders and public works and office staff, as well as all of those other Lower Providence residents who are frontline workers in our medical fields, in our grocery stores, and all throughout Montgomery County, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and the United States. So again, our thoughts and prayers are with all of you, and we're grateful to our Lower Providence residents for all of their hard work during this difficult time. We remind everyone to follow social distancing guidelines and stay safe and stay healthy. And with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a motion?
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Supervisor Colas. Supervisor Knight, can that be a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Bye.
I assume we're all voting to adjourn, knowing anything.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, thank you all for participating, and our next public meeting is scheduled for May 21st. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Good night.